On July 2nd, just 4 days before his 90th birthday, the 14th Dalai Lama announced that the institution of the Dalai Lama will continue, and that the Gaden Phodrang Trust shall be the sole authority to recognize the future reincarnation. This statement also made it clear that the Dalai Lama has rejected any role for China in choosing his successor as the spiritual head of Tibetan Buddhists.
가달라메 가서 다 연시사디 지 지주기 미 로마즈 지미기 다네 다디 연시시 고도스네 타셔요네 다가 타셔줘다 주로 니노 주미 니사 너가 제 니지 너 기버 겨워 주시스.
But what exactly is the Gaden Phodrang Trust, which the Dalai Lama has said will be responsible for finding his reincarnation? What role does China want to play in selecting the 14th Dalai Lama's successor, and why is it a delicate situation for India? Let's find out. The Gaden Phodrang Trust is a non-profit organization registered in 2011 in Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh, where the Dalai Lama resides. Its members include the Dalai Lama himself, senior monk Samdhong Rinpoche, and close aides who work in his office in Dharamshala. The Dalai Lama heads the trust, and its alternate chairperson, the second highest official, is Rinpoche, whom Tibetans believe to be the reincarnation of a former high-ranking monk. All members of the trust must be based in India. The main objective of the organization is to support the Dalai Lama's spiritual and humanitarian work. Everything seemed to be moving smoothly after the announcement until China stepped in.
活佛转世是藏传佛教特有的传承方式，已经延续了700多年，形成了严密的宗教仪轨和历史定制。达赖、班禅等大活佛转世灵童，需经平撤迁认定，中央政府批准。14世达赖本人就是在13世达赖喇嘛圆寂之后，严格按照宗教仪轨和历史定制寻访，由当时的国民政府颁令特准免于经平撤迁继任。
In short, China insists that the next Dalai Lama must be identified through the principles of a domestic search, the golden urn draw, and approval by the central government. But why is China insisting on this? Why does it want to approve the next Dalai Lama, and not the Gaden Phodrang Trust? To understand this, we need to go back in history. After the fall of the Qing dynasty, Tibet operated with a high degree of independence for several decades, running its own government. The Republic of China, 1912 to 1949, claimed Tibet as part of its territory, but had limited control over the region. In 1950, after the People's Republic of China was established in 1949, Chinese troops entered Tibet, calling it a peaceful liberation. Tibet later signed an agreement with the PRC, acknowledging Chinese sovereignty while promising autonomy and respect for Tibetan religion and culture. However, many Tibetans felt the agreement was signed under duress, and tensions escalated. In 1959, a major uprising broke out in Lhasa against Chinese rule, which was brutally suppressed by Chinese forces. The 14th Dalai Lama fled to India, where he established the Tibetan government-in-exile in Dharamshala. Since then, Tibet has remained under Chinese administration, though resistance has continued both within Tibet and internationally. In 1995, the Dalai Lama recognized a young boy, Gedhun Choeki Nyima, as the 11th Panchen Lama, the second highest spiritual figure in Tibetan Buddhism. Shortly afterward, Chinese authorities detained the boy and his family, effectively disappearing them from public view. China then appointed its own Panchen Lama, Gyaltsen Norbu, who is recognized by Beijing, but rejected by many Tibetans and by the Dalai Lama's followers. This incident is widely seen as part of China's broader effort to control Tibetan religious institutions and diminish the influence of the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan exile leadership. Now China wants to select its own candidate as the next Dalai Lama, ensuring there is no political threat to its rule over Tibet. And this brings us to India, which finds itself in a delicate position. In 1959, when the Dalai Lama escaped Chinese persecution and crossed into Arunachal Pradesh, Indian Prime Minister back then, Jawaharlal Nehru, decided to grant him asylum. Since then, India has been the de facto home of the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan government in exile in Dharamshala. This decision angered China and was one of the contributing factors to the Indo-China War in 1962. Today, over 100,000 Tibetan refugees live in India, many of whom strongly support Tibetan autonomy. On the issue of choosing the next Dalai Lama, Union Minority Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju recently stated, The position of the Dalai Lama is of utmost importance, not just for Tibetans, but for all his followers across the world. The right to decide on his successor rests solely with the Dalai Lama himself. As of now, it appears that the Gaden Phodrang Trust will announce the next Dalai Lama, and China will oppose the decision. The big question is, who will it be? And if the next Dalai Lama is based in Chinese-controlled Tibet, will he be safe? We may find out on July 6, 2025.